What's going on, fellow growers? This is Andrew from Tailwaggin Farms, and it's quickly becoming the best time of year, tomato planting time. As far as vegetables go in the garden, peppers will always be my number one, but tomatoes, they're a 1B. They're right up there with them. There's no better feeling than coming in from harvesting with a 30-pound basket full of tomatoes and cooking them down to some delicious sauce, or eating them fresh in a caprese salad, or just making a tomato sandwich. It's so delicious. Today, I'm going to go over how to start tomato seeds inside and also the 20 varieties that I'm growing. So come along and join me and let's get growing. Tomatoes are pretty easy to grow. The main thing that they like is a fairly warm place, so they like above 70 degrees to grow. So we start with our seedling packs. These are the 4-packs from Bootstrap Farmer. They're really nice, solid plastic. They're deep, deeper than I'd normally start with, but I don't want to have to pot up in 2 weeks because we got a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to be going on then, so I'm just starting them in the bigger pots. Start, you take your pre-moistened seed starting mix, put it in there, pack it down, not too firm, but you want to try to get rid of air gaps that are in there. Any big air gaps, you still want a little bit of air in the soil just because the plants need that as well to grow. So we're going to take it and we're going to make holes about 1/4 of an inch deep. And this whole tray is going to be the same type, the Paisano, which is our determinant production tomato. I'll go over that in a minute with you. Tomatoes are fun to grow. Good for kids. They produce well. And, you know, they're usually what you think of when you think of a summer garden. A lot of times those fresh tomatoes are just one of the best things going. So here's our Paisano from Johnny's. Tomato seeds are decent sized, especially compared to a lot of the flower seeds that we've been starting. So they're big enough that you can usually grab them. I'm going to go with 2 in each cell. This way I can make sure I get germination from at least 1. And then I'll come back through and thin them out once they get their first set of true leaves. That way I can figure out which one is the stronger looking of the two. And seeds are cheap. It's nice to have the number of plants that you plant, especially when you plan out your garden as extensively as we do. When you're refilling your packet of seeds, when you take out extra, don't do it directly over your seedling tray. We've all done it before. You spill it and then you have seeds all over, and then you have a thinning nightmare on your hands. So our Paisanos are planted. I'm going to go over here, get my label. Normally I would label each individual cell pack, but due to the fact that this is an entire tray's worth, I am just going to put it on the edge of the tray. Come through, just gently covering them up. And tomato seeds, as long as the temperature is warm, they'll typically sprout in a few days. So we should be having some pretty good looking plants here in the next week or 2. So while I start these tomatoes, let's quick talk about tomato growth habit. We're starting our seeds 5 to 7 weeks before our last frost date. This is actually 7 weeks before our last frost date because we're able to protect our seedlings out in a hoop house. You calculate your last frost date by looking at the USDA website and then counting back. Tomatoes love to grow in full sun. They like the warm weather condition. They cannot handle frost. If it gets much above 95 degrees at your house, they can benefit from a little bit of afternoon shade. But otherwise, give them lots of sun. They'll be happy. Now that we've gone over how to start a tomato seed inside, let's go over the different varieties real quick. Starting with the basics. There's two different types of tomatoes, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate tomatoes produce most of their harvest within like a couple weeks of each other. You do not need to prune them. They do good if they're like Florida weave trellised, just basically contained a little bit, not completely sprawling wild, but they have a very limited harvest window. Indeterminates, on the other hand, are your vining tomatoes, the climbers. You'll get a harvest all summer long, but it won't be as heavy. You do need to prune them, and they do need some support. We grow indeterminate tomatoes up sticks. We've also grown them up strings. And our current method that we use for indeterminate tomatoes is a lean and lower trellis inside of our hoop house. This year we'll be growing our determinants out in the ground in an area that we have tarped off right now. And then most of our indeterminates will be growing in our hoop house using the lean and lower method. Also, there's a bunch of different types of tomatoes to be used. You have your slicers, your beefsteaks. Those are the bigger tomatoes that you're used to seeing like in the store. You have your cherry tomatoes, the little sweet guys, plum-shaped tomatoes, grape tomatoes, Roma-style tomatoes, which are used for sauce. They're very meaty. So I'm going to go over our different varieties that we'll be growing this year, and let me know any varieties that you're growing or types that I need to try myself. The first type of tomato I'd like to go over is our production type, so to speak. These are the ones that we use mostly for canning, making salsa out of, making pasta sauce, pizza sauce. These are our real heavy producers, and we grow a lot of them, to be frank. First one that we're trying this year, it's a new one from us, from Johnny's Seeds, and it's called Paisano. It's a San Marzano style tomato, which means it's kind of long and fat. It has 4 to 5 ounce fruit, very thick walls, and they're a determinate. And we're going to grow that out kind of in our determinate tomato bed. Planting 32 of them. Hopefully that'll be enough to give us a really good harvest and get a lot of tomatoes all at once for our canning needs. The next variety that we're going to grow is one of our favorites. It's one of our old trusties. We're going to be growing 12 Juliet tomatoes, also from Johnny's. In our experience, these are super disease resistant. They're about that big, 1.5, 2 ounce fruit. They do great canned. They're great eating fresh. Take to the dehydrator pretty well. They're indeterminate, so they will grow and take over the world. We had a couple of plants that were over 40 feet long last year using the lean and lower method, which was incredible, but they were producing tomatoes. They were our first ones to produce, and they produced all the way up into November. So in the hoop house, even after our first frost. The next variety that we're going to grow for production is Verona. This is another similar to Juliet from Johnny's as well. But the fruit is larger. It's like 2.5 ounces, so they're a little bigger. The flavor is better than Juliet. I think it's more rich, a little sweeter, just more tomatoey, so to speak. And it's just a great producer. It does not produce nearly as much as Juliet, but that's offset by the size of the fruit. I just love the flavor of it, and we're going to grow 20 of them this year. So the Juliets and the Veronas, they'll be grown in the hoop house, lean and lower style, and yeah, hopefully we'll get a whole bunch of tomatoes from them as well, because I love to can, and we ran a little low last year on tomatoes, and we didn't end up getting enough to make as many crushed tomatoes as I normally would like, so we're really upping our production amount this year. The next type of tomatoes that we're going to talk about are the small varieties. These are pretty much our cherry tomatoes, and I'm going to throw a grape tomato or two in there as well. The number one cherry tomato that we always go with is the Super Sweet 100. We're going to grow one Super Sweet 100 plant. It's your typical cherry tomato, 15 to 20 gram fruit. When they say Super Sweet 100, there's usually 100 fruit on that plant at any given time. The trusses that it produces are just spectacular. I mean, you'll have 100 cherry tomatoes on one truss. It's super prolific, It's usually the first plant to produce for us, the first ones that ripen, so that's always a nice start to the season. It is indeterminate and it grows like a wild tomato. So you got to stay on top of pruning it, but it'll produce all the way up to frost, and it's delicious little cherry tomatoes. The next variety, I have mixed feelings about this one. Everyone always says it's the greatest tomato of all time. You'll see it all over YouTube. It's the Sun Gold. I'm going to grow one of them. It's good, but I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best tomato ever. It's very acidic to me. I mean, it tastes good, but I don't know. It splits super easily. It doesn't last at all on the counter. It's nice for a little snack here or there. Grab a fresh basil leaf, grab a couple Sun Golds, throw them in your mouth. It's delicious, but I'm not going to grow more than one of them. The next one is a new one for me. It's from Botanical Interests. It's called Patio Choice Yellow. So this is a bush variety of tomato. It's meant for containers. It's a small, only grows I think 18 inches tall, they're saying. So I'm going to try to grow this in a container, possibly my green stalk. And it produces little yellow cherry tomatoes, about 15-gram fruits. I've never grown it before, but they say it has good disease resistance, which is important down here in the South. And yeah, looking forward to trying this one. The next couple ones are some specialty tomatoes from Johnny's. The first one is Lucky Tiger. This is new to us, haven't grown it before. It's got 25 to 30-gram fruits. They're red, orange, yellow with green striping, and they're indeterminate. These all came as part of a collection from Johnny's. So we have the Sunrise, which are red and yellow streaked 20 to 25-gram fruit. The Pink, which is a pink bumblebee, is orange and yellow striping, 20 to 25 grams. And the Purple, which looks really cool to me, is it's a red tomato with like metallic green striping on it. Looking forward to growing these. And the last one that's part of the collection we've actually grown before, and it's Blush. I think this one has an amazing flavor. Super sweet, just got a real nice balanced flavor. It's also very prone to splitting. So you gotta kind of be careful with that one, and the pests absolutely love it. So that's why we grow that. We've grown that one in the hoop house before, but the flavor and all the headache makes it worth it. Now let's talk about our larger tomatoes. These are our slicers, the ones that we eat fresh. Throw them on a sandwich, throw them on a burger, chop them up, put them in a salad. I also like to make bruschetta almost every day in the summertime. It's just, I eat it at least 5 times a week. We got our fresh garlic, got our fresh tomatoes, throw some basil in there, maybe a little balsamic. Oh, so good. I made some the other day. It wasn't good. They were store-bought tomatoes. It just had no flavor at all. So I can't wait to get back to eating tomatoes from the garden. It's just so different. So the first larger tomato is one I haven't grown before. It was a free seed packet from Baker Creek. The Thornburn Terracotta tomato. Looked interesting to me. They say it's semi-determinate. Orange and honey colored with a green seed mass. It'll be interesting to see. It's supposed to have a really good flavor. I don't know. We'll see. I'll grow one plant and see if I like it. The next is one that we grew last year, and it was a pretty good tomato. It's the Wisconsin 55 from Johnny's. It's got a delicious like 6 to 8 ounce slicers. Nice firm texture to them. They just look like your regular picturesque tomato. Beautiful color on them, real strong stems. They lasted pretty well on the counter, and just like I said, good texture, good flavor. Held up pretty good in the heat. A little bit of bug issues, but it's kind of expected. But we will be growing those again. We'll be growing 2 of those in the hoop house this year, so looking forward to those. The next one is a beauty, but it's also kind of a pain. We've had so many issues with blossom end rot with it. It's the speckled Roman from Johnny's. This produces 6 to 8 ounce meaty plum tomatoes. They kind of look like a Roma. They're super meaty tomatoes. The flavor is unbelievable. Hence why we're still growing one plant at least. It's got the right amount of like sweet, the acidity. It's good canned. It was great fresh. It's a pretty looking fruit too. The pests love it. The blossom end rot is an issue. You got to have your pH just right, or else it just completely blossom end rot on half the tomatoes. We keep a little space inside, even for that headache, just because the flavor is there. And hopefully, we'll have the pH dialed in this year and get a whole bunch of fruit from it. The next one is a new one to me as well. It was a free pack that came from Baker Creek, the Bonnie Best. They say it's an old school canning tomato that can be used as a slicer, medium sized fruit. Say it has a good flavor. We'll see. Looking forward to trying it. So, always willing to try a tomato. The next variety is a new one for me, and it comes from Victory Seeds. And these seeds were part of the open source seed initiative where they encourage you to save seeds and share them. This variety was bred to be a dwarf plant. So it's only a 36-inch tall plant, and it's called the Dwarf Stony Brook Heart Tomato. It makes kind of like a heart-shaped tomato, beautiful red with some golden striping. It's like 6 to 10 ounce fruit, so decent sized fruit on a smaller plant. I'm really looking forward to trying this one. Hopefully it has great flavor. Also, open source seed people, I mean, it's a great project, and hopefully I'll be able to save a couple seeds and contribute back to them as well. The next one up is Mountain Merit from Botanical Interests. This is also a slicer. It's determinant, so it will be going out with our other determinant crops. And it's red plant or red fruit with a firm texture. I like the fact that the plants are smaller, and it's said to have very good disease resistance. So hopefully this will be a good one for us, and looking forward to trying it. Up next on the list is a strange one. Also was a free seed packet, and it is the Black Beauty from Baker Creek. I say it's the world's darkest tomato. It's a super dark, almost black slicer. Looks interesting. Don't really know much about it. From the little I was able to read about it, it's people love it. It's kind of strange looking to me, though. We'll see. Looking forward to trying it, though, and I'll be growing one of those as well. The last two tomatoes I want to talk about are, well, one of them is my favorite tomato to grow, and it is the Martha Washington from Johnny's. This is a beautiful pink flesh tomato. It's got a nice firm texture. The flavor is out of this world. It's sweet, it's acidic, it's just balanced perfectly. It's great sliced up. It's great in my bruschetta. It's great eating tomato every day. If I can get one of those every day, I'm a happy man. Now the last tomato I'm growing is actually a very similar to the Martha Washington. It's a new release from Johnny's, and it's called Strawberry Fields. They say it's very similar to Martha Washington, similar flavor. And I love the pink tomatoes. I think they taste the best out of the bunch. Strawberry Fields is said to have more blight resistance, which is pretty important around here with the diseases that we get here. So, I mean, I don't know if you can improve on Martha Washington in my heart, but if it does, I'm all for it. So, those are the tomatoes I'm going to be growing this year. Now I'll just go over a couple of the so-called tomato-adjacent plants that I'll be growing. I'm going to be growing 2 types of tomatillos this year. I love my salsa verde. And I'm going to be growing the Super Verde and a Grande Rio Verde tomatillos. The last tomato-adjacent plant I'm growing is ground cherries. I'm going to grow the pineapple variety. Kind of has from what I hear, it's kind of tastes like a tomatillo or a tomato with a pineapple flavor. So never grown it before, so I'll put a little corner out in the garden, give that one a try as well. Well, faux growers, thanks for coming by to talk tomatoes with me. Let me know down in the comments some of your favorite varieties of tomatoes, if I'm missing some that I need to be growing. Also, any tomato recipes that I gotta make sure I try. So please like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and hopefully see you next time around here at Tailwaggin Farms, and happy growing.